Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to, or call to order the Board of Assessors meeting for Monday, November 18th, 2024. My name is John Bullion. I'm the Chair of the Board of Assessors. In accordance with the open meeting law at the beginning of the meeting, I must disclose to attendees whether the meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being broadcast via Zoom that's being recorded for publication, later viewing, and administrative purposes. Also, after notifying the chair, any person who may make a video or audio recording of the meeting or may transmit the meeting with any meeting, subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Please let me know now so that I can make that announcement as well. You recording? Okay. You're recording. Is there anything that you have that it's just? And no, it's not, but you can pick it up, okay, there? Or do you need it on the table? No, I mean, okay, thank you. We have, first item on the agenda is a public comment period. Is there anybody from the public to make or on Zoom? Okay, there isn't anybody. Do we have minutes from prior meetings? So we do not at this time. So let's move into open session. Well, we're still in open session. Let's move to the recertification update.
Mr. Chair, the preliminary work by the town has completed and submitted all its data to the Department of Revenue, and the field representative assigned to Needham has completed her work and has passed it on to her supervisor, and the data is now being reviewed at that level. I have passed out to you a preliminary notice that would be going out. The areas that are subject to change before we go out is the areas that are highlighted. That is whether it's preliminary certification or actual certification. If I don't hear from DOR before 12, we will not be able to have open disclosure starting on Monday, the 25th. It would have to be the following week because the deadline for the legal notice in the paper is basically 12 noon today for Thursday's edition. And the percentage, the average changes in the different classification properties, those are where we stand, depending on what the after DOR looks at the data. I mean, if there are any changes or tweaks that they make, that may impact these averages. I'm anticipating that any changes are going to be will be de minimis. So these are probably where they're going to be, but since the process is not done there, that's still a possibility of change. The major factors that this hasn't changed, as has been discussed at previous board meetings, is land is the major contributor to the increases in values, particularly for residential and commercial. Land values during the basically during the COVID times just went up significantly. We are still seeing homes being purchased, capes and ranches being purchased to be knocked down, which basically means that's the purchase price for a building lot in town, and that's what's driving the cost of land in Needham. Construction itself, those tables are fairly consistent. The cost of construction is fairly the same in most communities, so that's not going to be significantly different, but it's really land that's driving the values.
Okay. Did you get a copy of this, Peter? Okay. Sure. Okay.
It's just not ready for publication. That's the change. I'll send it to you once I get the green light from DOI.
That's what preliminary. Yeah. Okay. So that's where we stand on the recertification at this moment. Okay. Thank you. Next, we have taxpayer appointments. Gary Simon. Gary, come on up to the table. Sit right next to the chair. Sit. Or either place.
Okay.
And then I'll introduce everybody to you.
Welcome, Mike.
Mike Dyden, Mike Diener,
Mike,
John Burry, and we met years ago. Probably years ago. Yeah.
Yes, as you know, I'm a
Nancy Martin of the Assessing Department, Cecilia Simchak, Chip, you know, Dave Davison. Okay. Gary, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for agreeing to see me. Um, the basic premise of my complaint is that similar buildings in the town are assessed on a per square foot basis. To get everything apples and apples, are quite less. As an example, and by the way, I'm talking for fiscal year 23. My building, the building in question is assessed at $311 per square foot. 1013 Great Plain Avenue, which is where the liquor store and Citizens Bank is assessed at $243 a foot. And you know, the basic differential is I happen to have CVS that's paying quite a bit more rent. And my argument is that, you know, that's in a way is beside the point. Because under the rules, as I understand it, and Chip was very nice to send me a citation from my I'll make the citation, but basically the rule is the use of income capitalization approach is appropriate when reliable sales data are not available. Assessors. It is also appropriate technique to use value income property. The board. No, that's not what I want here. Direct capitalization, sorry. Direct capitalization is widely used in properties that are already operating on a stabilized basis, which I'm going to emphasize. And there are ample supply of comparable rentals with similar risk levels, and I'm going to emphasize risk level as well. And I accept that. And the point I'm trying to make is that even though I'm getting quite a bit more rent, I'm sure than the building I'm comparing myself to. I have at least at the time, which was January 1st, 2022, which is the date we look at for valuing the property, correct? Fiscal year 23?
Yes.
We agree? Okay. So at that time, I was looking at a lease with CVS with 2 years left to go. And CVS had options, but it's their option, not mine. So they could leave. And so that's a risk level, especially at that rate, that a ready, willing, and able buyer that would be looking at this property to value it would discount, not knowing whether CVS is going to take on that lease. In addition to that, of course, I keep track of these things because I have 3 CVS properties. But there was an article, a series of articles talking about CVS. And here's, I think I put that in the paperwork that I sent to Chip. CVS to close 900 stores, 10% of its locations. The date of the article was in 2021, November 2021. So a ready, willing, and able buyer on January 1st, 2022 would look at that and say, you know, are these numbers that I'm looking at right now maintainable? And maybe they are, maybe they're not. But my point is, there's a risk factor, which is I'm trying to point to, that number is going to be a good number going forward. In addition to that, I will be happy to disclose that CVS eventually did pick up the line. In a letter and again, it's a letter I sent to Chip, dated May 26th, 2023, which was obviously past the date of the valuation. But it's interesting to note, if you read the letter, it says, in the second paragraph, pursuant to the lease extension dated December 20th, 2013, the above referenced renewal option period is to be based on fair market value. So it was, and by the way, fair market value, there was no base on that number. It could go up or down. So again, looking at that number that I was getting, even at the time, was at risk. And anybody that would look and value that property as a buy, would discount that. So that's the basic premise of my argument, that the property really should be valued on the basis of attainable market rate rents in the downtown. And I think if you look at again, going back to the building at 1013 Great Plain Avenue, very similar buildings. It's a little bit smaller. It's at the corner of Chestnut and Great Plain, the other building. It also happens to coincidentally have a municipal lot behind it. And the train stopping right there too, which I would argue is maybe even a little bit better of an advantage. So the rents there should be comparable. And ultimately, the per square foot value of the building should be comparable. So that's the gist of my argument. Okay, and if you run the numbers, and again, going back to 1013 Great Plain Avenue, it comes out in 2023 to a per square foot value of $243. And if you run that number with my number of square footage, which is 15,000 and change, you come out to about $3.9 million. So that's what I'm asking for the board to consider.
I'm sorry, when you say 3.9 million, you mean 3.9 million?
I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, the actual arithmetic works out to 3,867,000. Happy to round. Anyway, the current value is at 4.5 million. So that's where we are. And Chip is, I appreciate the fact that he's jumped in and helped out while Melissa's on leave.
So the renewed rate, was that at the 52.24 also, or is that something less or more?
The renewal rate?
Yeah.
But we literally just negotiated that within the last 8, it was right around February of 2023.
So what was it negotiated up to, or
Who was it prior to the 52.24?
It's been 52.24 for the previous 5 years before that. Before it went from, it ended in February of 2024, so it must have begun February of 2019, so that was the rate.
So 52.24 is the same rate as the renewal rate.
no, it's
No.
He says the renewal rate.
Renewal rate went up. But
What did it go up to?
we negotiated that in, what I'm saying is we negotiated that in 2024.
Can you share that?
I don't have the number off the top of my head. But it went up,
10%, 20%,
no,
30%?
nowhere near that. 100,
What would you? 10%?
I can get back to you. but
Yeah, I think that would be a good
The
number.
CVS is also obviously doing things internally, do that. So how do you explain the fact that, despite the fact that CVS is talking about closing 10% of its stores, despite all the COVID hangover, that you were able to get more as opposed to
You know, it's
They're
an
flat or
interesting thing,
cracked.
as I was saying before, I happen to have three buildings and two of the buildings came up for negotiation recently. And frankly, I thought this was the weaker of the three. And that I was gonna, especially that clause that said that fair market value, I thought they were gonna hammer me because I don't have any comparables I could point to in Needham that would justify the rent they would pay.
Where are the other stores?
Exactly.
I own one on Route 9 on the Natick Wellesley line.
Yeah,
And, the third one is in Belmont on Trapello Road,
okay.
which the Belmont on Trapello Road is a store. And I walk in the stores, especially when I'm negotiating to see how things are going. And it's interesting, that store kills it. And it's interesting on that renewal, even though they had an option price, I got a lot of pushback. And, they made me kind of nervous, but we ended up extending for 5 years, but only at that rate, that had a prescribed, increase rate, which was like 3.5%. Which I was surprised they gave me the pushback because it was such a busy store. So there's no real rhyme or reason. To how they're negotiating stores, at least that I can figure out, and they're certainly not enlightening me. But, you know, they are closed, as you know, they closed the store in Wellesley Square. Within the last couple of years, and, I don't know about other ones specifically, but they are closing stores. If I had to get that space back, I don't know if you've been in that store, but
A lot, I'm 65.
Yeah. we shared that. So it's a big, it's a big, deep store. And I guess that's the other thing. If you ever got that space back, you'd spend quite a bit of money repurposing that store. You'd probably split it in half, because it's over 10,000 feet.
It is two addresses, isn't it? It used to be two stores. I'm going back.
Way back.
Yeah, the lanes or whatever.
Oh, no, this, what used to be Woolworths,
Yes, I remember that.
that's the original Woolworths. And then as you head down Dedham Ave, 135, you used to have, Kenny's Pharmacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, and DeSales.
The cells, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had those two little stores, which are both now restaurants.
Mhm.
And, they're the Kenny's store is like 2,800 feet. That's kind of an odd size too, but they're rented. This thing would be, I wouldn't want to get it back. Let's put it that way. I was very happy with my renegotiation.
Are they at the same square footage amount, those other two spaces? Stonehearth and whatever the other ones,
Stonehearth is 2,800 feet.
yeah,
And the farmhouse is I think 1850.
and I'm sorry for my ignorance, but per square foot, what are,
Oh, in terms of rent,
yeah,
they're getting in the high mid-30s
okay.
for rent.
Okay, so right now, we're talking about, because the way it's listed here, at least on the history page on the values, the 4.5 million is for tax year 2024. 2022 had been as high as 6.4 million, and then it dropped substantially by 30%, down to 4.2. Now the 4.2, is that in 2023, would that be reasonable for that time?
Yeah. And Chip, do you have, and again, just to get to sort of for us to discuss further, the INEs for 2020, 2021, 2022?
I don't know if we've gone back that far. I have with me FY 24 and FY 25. I mean, they're very similar from one year to the next. Because again, you had a 10-year lease with stable rent.
Right.
I don't know what the leases were in the restaurants.
There were 5-year leases.
So 21
Yeah, pretty stable,
to 25 would have been stable.
relatively.
Okay, so
Yet I would have, I don't know how 2020 would have been or 2021 for the restaurants.
Well, they hung in
Yes,
there.
I'm sure it would have been crazy.
Yeah, CVS did well and they paid their bills. I was very happy.
Yeah.
The restaurants, of course, I was concerned about, but they both survived.
Restaurants did well with PPP or whatever you call it.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, Needham was, I own 5 different buildings in Needham. They all, you didn't lose a tenant to go, so that was great.
What's a typical term on a new restaurant? Is it
Usually a 5.
5 and then?
5 and a 5,
with
because
renewal?
if they're coming in new, they're gonna
They wanna
want
make
options
investment.
because they wanna protect it.
And when you say and 5, you mean a tenant, a
A 5-year option,
tenant option?
tenant option, either sometimes at market or sometimes pre-negotiations.
With a max increase of some kind or?
Well, I
or
mean,
with- yeah.
no, not necessarily,
Okay,
if it's at market.
okay. But I see that there was a previous value of 4.2 million for 2023. At least that's, our years, and you're talking about 2023 or the 2022 value, but at least the way it shows up in the search, it shows that 4.5 million is a 2024 value. And then 4.2 is 2023 and 6.4 is 2022.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at my application that I submitted to the ATB.
Yes.
And I have 4.5 million in change for 2023. Fiscal year 2020.
Right, maybe it's probably something in the,
They're talking about.
your tax year, fiscal year, calendar year. And
I know, it's very,
some of those are, yeah, blending together.
That's what they're referring to, that document. Chip, can you help me understand, why it changed in 2022? Was that COVID related or?
It could have been,
6.4 to-
I don't know if those numbers, to be honest with you, are correct. Because I'm looking at, first of all, we're discussing fiscal 24, I
Right,
believe.
but I'm just trying to figure out the trend there and what was the,
The trend is basically been down because I reduced the value at one point and then we abated it 1 year to 4.5 million. Because I, again, was taking into account CVS possibly going belly up at the end of the lease. And I went to a stabilized rent at $42 a foot, which is Needham again, does not have a real ample supply of properties to, like you would find in Boston for, establishing a stabilized rent, but there just aren't that many. And they tend to fluctuate tenants in and out, but, I had used 42 to come up with a value that we abated it to from 5 million and change, to 4.5. And I don't know if you have this, but here's the abatement, and you'll have to pass this around. Here's the abatement application for FY 22.
And for the public, what is stabilized rent and what's the opposite of stabilized and how are they different?
Well, for an income producing property, it's semi-unique. We generally take the rent, we apply a vacancy allowance, we apply an expense allowance, and use a capitalization rate to come up with a value. In other words, it's 10,000 square feet times $50 a foot, gives you a number. You take 10%, you assume 10% vacancy was what we generally do in mass appraisal. If we have a property that's got a huge vacancy, we'll take that into account, assuming the tenant's gonna be here at some point. If it has no vacancy, we still give them 10%, because at some point they're gonna have it. Then we take a certain percentage of expenses. In this case, it's a triple net lease on all of them. Is that correct? We apply that for a gross lease, which is where the owner's paying for everything, the owner of the building. We have a higher expense rate, usually like 35%. And then we take a capitalization rate that's kind of drawn from the market as to how fast is the owner gonna get his money back. And you do the math and it gives you a number. That's for most of the commercial properties in Needham. That's what we do, again, because we don't have a real ample supply.
Right.
But at the time, we talked. And CVS was up in the air. I decided to use a stabilized rent and abated the property from 5 points. Did I give it to you?
That's not over.
Yeah. 5 point something to 4.5, which is the value that is being disputed now.
I think what we should do is, because this is ATV has been filed,
Yes,
ATV
it's
case has been
actually,
filed, we should discuss this in executive.
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Yeah, and so, if, unless Gary has anything further to provide us, I think that we should, yeah.
you have a hearing scheduled for the
December
11th of December.
Okay.
I don't know whether you want to,
Oh,
pardon me?
I'm thinking of another case, sorry.
Okay. I don't know whether you want to
Yeah,
move that back while you're discussing this.
Well, let's, I mean, I wanna, I think that what we need to do is we'll have a discussion. We'll go into executive after Gary leaves, and we'll have a further discussion. And then you can communicate with Gary as to if we feel we need more time to gather more information, okay?
Sure.
To extend the date on that, unless you think you're prepared to do that now. I don't know that, I think we need to discuss it as a board.
Yeah, no, it's not, what I'm
Okay.
saying is just to cover your bases over Thanksgiving and everything else, I don't know when the next meeting is.
Next Monday.
Okay, well, I'm not here for that, but,
Okay.
you may want
We
to just
we
consent
canceled
to
all
push it
vacations.
out to another date.
Chip, we canceled all vacations.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going on vacation. Anyway, you may want to just get consent to change the date while you're both in the room together, if it becomes necessary.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
We need to have a discussion executive.
Yeah.
If you need more time, I'm fine.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's basically the answer to the question.
Okay, good. So, if you don't have anything else, then we'll, I think the next item on the agenda is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Then we'll look for a motion to go into executive session to comply with conditions of any general or special law, specifically to discuss real estate and personal property exemption and or abatement applications which are not open to public inspection. Or to comply with provisions of any general or special laws, specifically to discuss the terms of real property health and charitable purposes which are not open to public inspection. Or to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's litigation. Have a motion.
Second.
Right,
Aye.
aye. Then we will. We'll do executive session.
You all set?
Yeah, just about.
Hold on one second.
Just make sure you leave the phone behind.
Yeah.